I do feel like my talk's been set up quite nicely today. We've had Daniela talking about good leadership. We've had Joe on the rise of hacks and all the miscreants on the internet, and we never know what's coming next. William talking about geopolitics and the uncertain world we live in, and Declan just now talking about I can't believe no one laughed, the jokes about the high seas when he's in shipping. He deserved a laugh for that. But also how we kind of navigate in the rough seas and measuring security success, because it is one of those things where we're often responsible for what happens, but we're not accountable for how we got there. So that can be one of the things that leads to a lot of stress as well in our world. So, I'm going to quickly intro who I am and some of my history, but that will become clear why that is important to this talk or relevant to this talk. Some stats and data on burnout, and we all know it's a thing, but there's actually a lot of data to back up the fact that it is increasing, and then some talking about why the cause of it, and also then probably the most important bit, what we can do about it and how we can better manage it, and then a last little slide on what we should do right now. So, I'm a whole list of things, as we all are, and I think one of the challenges a lot of us have in security is we kind of see it as like a vocation. So our identity is I'm an security engineer, or I'm a CISO, or I'm in SecOps, whatever else. We wrap that up too much in who we are, and security is not who we are, it's one of the things we do. So you'll be many things. You'll be a partner, you'll be an athlete, you'll be a chess player, you'll be a student, whatever you are, and there's millions of things that you make up who you are. As that list there, I ride motorbikes, so I put athlete in inverted commas because I do the sports, but let's be honest, I pretend to be an athlete, a husband and father. A CISO's in there as well, do some coaching and stuff, but a CISO's not who I am, despite the fact I fell into that same trap and I got very wrapped up in this is who I am. It's not who I am, it's just one of the things I do. So, my history. So the reason why I'm going to talk about this, and it's not specifically burnout, is just because so anyone who is suffering understands that whilst I'm not someone who's had specifically burnout recently, I have been through some dark times when you don't know who to talk to and you don't think anyone's there for you. So I do kind of come at this from a place of care and understanding. So I come from a very broken home. My parents argued a lot. My mother had an affair. She married a stepfather who thought hitting me and my brother was fun. I remember one time I was held up against the wall by him, by my throat when I was a little kid, and he said, "Try it," and I'll put my fist through your face. This was after he hit my brother. And I've held a knife at my chest and really prayed for the strength to kill myself when I was a teenager. I've not talked about this much in public. It was many, many years ago. I'm not after sympathy, but it shapes who you are. And burnout can be the same. People can have burnout and suffer for years afterwards and not talk about it. And I ended up with a huge chip on my shoulder in my 20s. And life looks great on the outside. So again, you can look fine. You can be reasonably successful. I got to a point when I was in my first marriage, which was a disaster, but I had the BMW outside the house, and I lived in St Albans, which is quite a nice town, and life looked great, but it was shit, and I was miserable. Excuse my French. I don't know why we always say excuse my French. I don't know where that comes from, because none of it's ever French. The French people are going, we never say that. We say it much more elegantly than you do. I don't know where that comes from, but we always say it, right? So I spent many years trying to find this thing of never being like my dad, who never moved on and getting hurt, but also wanting to be loved and being in a relationship. So I just had, life was okay, but just 15, 20 years of disastrous relationships, that wasn't particularly healthy for me. It's not burnout, but it is being in that place and not getting help and not fixing yourself, which is not a good idea. So, why would I share that? Interestingly, if I do get a bit emotional at any points, I've not talked about some of that stuff in public before because it is a bit private, but I think it's relevant to this kind of topic. So I do understand what it's like to be in a dark place. I do understand not thinking anyone was there to help you. When you are in that dark place, when you have depression, whatever else, when you need the help most is when you're least likely to ask for it. So I've been there, and I can understand it can take a long time to recover, especially if you're an idiot and don't get help, right? So don't be like me. If you are struggling, talk to someone. People want to listen. There's many of us, my for want of a better term, DMs are open. Not for that kind of thing, but if you want to chat or anything, we can talk about that. But if you're struggling, do speak to someone. Do find ways to help yourself. Do find ways to get looked after, because it will drag on for a long time if you don't. And finally, don't judge a book by its cover. There's some weird reflection thing on Google there. Because if you looked at me at that point, I was a middle-class white boy who was doing all right. And that's just very stereotypical. He's got no problems, doesn't need help because he's not from an impoverished background or whatever. You can't tell from a cover what someone's going through, whether they're neurodiverse, whether they've had bad things happen in their life. So take that moment to actually realise that when someone looks fine and when someone is a stereotypical, well, that person's had success easily because they've come from a nice town and they've got, they're the colour that does best or whatever. That might not be the only story. So just take that moment to realise that what you see isn't necessarily what the whole story about someone. So before I carry on, a quick thank you to both Cyberminds and Mental Health and Cybersecurity Foundation. These are two great organisations doing a lot of stuff around mental health and burnout. Specific to our industry, because we are a bit different to some industries, which we'll come on to in a second, but they both helped me with some of the research and data that I use for this. So what is the data telling us? Really interesting one. So you'd think people in healthcare and hospitals on low pay, dealing with crap, working long hours would suffer more than us, but there's an Australian study that was done in conjunction with Cyberminds, and there is more burnout in cybersecurity than there is in frontline healthcare, which is mad. Because we're just security, right? It's just an office job. We get to chill, we get to work from home, we're working on a laptop, you can have Netflix on in the background, whatever else, right? So you can't imagine how a job like ours would be worse than someone who's dealing with people coming in the middle of the night after having a fight in a pub or an accident in a car or whatever else. But it is. So there's lots of studies on this. This was quite a good one. So this is a bit of a wordy one. I'm not going to read it all out, obviously, because that'd be really dull. But fundamentally, there is depending which study, 47 to 63 to 76% of people suffering some level of burnout in our industry. So it's everywhere, it's systemic. And as we've touched on with Declan just now, we're about trust, we're about stability, we're about resilience. And the talk before him, even though I said his name right at the start, that's why I wrote down the names, because I forget the names really easily. The guy talking about geopolitics as well. Our role is to enable our organisations to be safe and secure. Our role is to protect people's money, to protect people's data, protect whatever our organisation does. So it has impacts outside of us. If people are burnt out, they make more mistakes. So your organisation is less secure if your team is burnt out and stressed. Impacts leaders as well. So many people in here may be leaders of teams, security leaders or aspiring leaders, and we suffer from the same things. So we don't necessarily have to be in the weeds quite as much, but I know in my role, I'm not first on call, so I don't get called as much as our SecOps people, but I'm on 24/7, 365 escalation. So if something goes wrong that needs a more senior level of support, or something that goes wrong and my team miss it, guess who gets called? The person who's the boss, right? So when that go through, and my head of SecOps has the same. He'll get called before me if his team missed something or something serious. So there's a lot of roles in security where you are supporting your team. You're not front line, but you're supporting your team and your whole team and trying to understand all of it. We have to deal with the changing priorities that we all have to deal with. And one of the other ones that's interesting, again, I think Declan mentioned it, was how we're often accountable for what happens, but not accountable for what happens, but not responsible for how we got there. So if your organisation isn't investing enough in cyber, if your organisation takes some risks, we're the ones that will have to pick it up. We're the ones that will deal with the incident, but we're not the people able to make the decisions to prevent the incident happening. So that can cause another level of stress, especially when you're at the leadership level and you're aware of all these decisions that might impact your team later, but you can't necessarily change them or make them yourself. What else? So there's loads of things that affect all of our teams. Alert fatigue, that's a huge one. Constantly worrying about what's going to happen. There we go, look, I shouldn't have said it early because I've got it in this slide. We're accountable for things in our systems that we're not responsible for. So you get this kind of control responsibility paradox where you don't have the control, but you have the responsibility. And we all know, even in any role, one of the things that causes the most stress is not feeling you've got autonomy, not feeling you're empowered to do things. So when you are the receiving end of problems, but you can't fix the problems, you don't feel empowered. Even if you're empowered in a day job, you don't feel you've got control. And even in high pay roles or roles that you think look great, if someone doesn't feel they have control of their own destiny, that's a level of stress in itself. You often see that in the sort of people in roles in, say, kind of call centres and things. You're like, well, it's not a difficult role, you're just taking calls. But they have no autonomy. They're just told, sit there, do the calls. And that's hugely stressful because you have no autonomy and no control. So we know from other areas of the business and other organisations that causes a level of stress in itself. You never know when things go wrong. So, you don't know you can be, I always don't know why I always use 2 a.m., but 2 a.m. on a Sunday morning, something happens. So it can be really hard to turn off because you are sitting there at the weekend outside of hours. Am I going to get called? Is something going to go wrong? Are we going to get breached? And a lot of other people will do their work. You might finish your accountant spreadsheet or whatever, put it down, go home. You're not going to worry, your spreadsheet's not going to be there in the morning, are you? But we are worried about the business not being there in the morning or something happening overnight. A good day is when nothing goes wrong. Again, I think some others have touched on this. If you How do you measure success? How do we measure when we're finished? How do we measure when it's done? It's never done. Success is a quiet day. Success is a day when you recover from an issue well, but there's not a marked we're done. There's not like a product release that says, hey, that's out the door. We've got the new thing done. Pat ourselves on the back. There isn't that kind of finishing it. There isn't, and there's not necessarily many pats on the back. How many of us have been patted on the back because nothing went wrong? When was the last time your CEO said, great job, nothing went wrong today, well done? You know, we might have blocked 50 attacks, had a bunch of near misses, stopped some data being stolen. There's never a congratulations for that because it just didn't go wrong. We have, because we're a lot of engineers and other things, there's I don't know the stats compared to other areas, but there's quite a lot of neurodivergent individuals in our field, which can be amazing because like focus and other, they can be really good at things, but they can also take things home more, and you can also find higher levels of stress if you don't know how to deal with it. And just in the way we speak to people, I think there's a whole post earlier about people with ADHD can take things much more personally to heart. So you can just a little kind of, oh, can we do that instead, or we're not going to do that. To you, it might be a throwaway comment. To someone else, they might be sitting there all night stressing about, have I done something wrong, is it bad? So knowing how to help support people who respond differently to communications that we think might be normal or might be okay is a thing we need to work on. Post-breach suffering. I've not seen anyone call it PTSD or anything like that, but if you have a breach and you have an issue and you get a load of grief from it, it can cause you to struggle and worry about it for a long time afterwards. People have issues years after major breaches when they might have moved to a different role and the rest of us have forgotten about it. And team camaraderie. I think one of the things when you compare us in like office jobs in inverted commas to some of the more serious things, whether it's military or fire brigade or whatever else, they're together as a team. They're relying on each other as a team. They're bleeding together. I know when I train with the guys, we sweat together, we bleed together in the gym, and you build that camaraderie. And I think it's really hard in office to do that, especially if you're distributed or remote first or whatever else. How do you build that camaraderie? And I think the whole, I call it being beige at work. You must never offend anyone. I can be offended if I say something mean to someone over there that's just a joke and we're both fine, and then someone else can be offended on their behalf and complain about me even though nothing's happened. I know that's to prevent bullying, but we live in a world where everyone's so worried about causing offence at work that again, I don't know about you guys, but my closest friends are also the most savage people in my life. In the last week, I've been called a midget, I've been called slow, I've been called old, and that's just the stuff I can repeat here, right? But these are by people that I love me, and I love them, and they're my best friends. But you can't do that in the office as much. So how do you build that camaraderie as a team that relies on each other and builds those bonds when you're so constrained by what you're allowed to say and do in the office? Again, touched on quite nicely in one of the earlier talks, totally outside of our control and not cyber-specific, but we live in a very confusing and worrying world at the moment. So it's not that cyber necessarily causes this, but your level of stress and worry is already going to be higher. There's wars everywhere. There's inflation, things are getting more expensive, pay stagnant, AI is going to take your jobs, robots are going to take your jobs. I've seen people say, oh, I don't have to worry about AI because I work in a manual job. Then you see these robots that walk around cleaning your house now. I don't know if you've seen them. There's actual robots that can come and clean your house for you and stuff. So how long before they can do the building job? Why would I pay a builder to come and not turn up on Monday because he's tired to do my roof when I can have a robot working 24/7 and get it done in 2 days? Do you know what I mean? And I'm not knocking anyone at all, but no one's job is necessarily going to be the same in a few years, and that's a worry for all of us, right? And then the economic outlook, the whole world's a shambles. You see, it is, right? But how else do you describe it? How else, it doesn't matter what side of the political fence you're on, things aren't going well. So yes, the world's a scary place, and that's going to add to everyone's stress. And if you're already worried and close to being burnt out, and then you're worried about your job, and you're worried about, will your kids have jobs, and what the world's going to be like for them, and whatever else, that just adds to the stress of people. So we have to think about that as well, or take that consideration as well. So how do you deal with this? So I love these two things. So understanding what you can control. So there's a lot of stuff that causes us stress that's outside of our control, and we're not going to fix it. We're not going to fix the economy. We're not going to stop the wars. We're not going to magically fix inflation. AI is coming, whatever we want to do. And even within our own organisation, there's going to be things we can and can't control. So really have a little thing to think about what you can and can't control and how you react to it is a really important thing. And trying your best to let things that you can't control just kind of wash over you as much as possible. So where should we focus? We've all seen this before. So for me, there's anything that's outside your control. Yes, it can worry you, But if you're focusing on trying to do something about it, or you're ranting away on the internet, I'm going to have a comment battle with someone because it's really important. No, it's not. It's not at all. But you can't fix it and you can't change it. So the more you can back off from that stuff and sanitize what you think about and what you see and read about and whatever else, the better off you'll be, because that stuff you can't do anything about at all. Then the stuff you can influence, and that may be worth putting a bit of effort in, especially in your organisation, because you can't control it, but you might be able to influence things to be better. Then the stuff you can control, and that's what we're really going to focus on. So, yeah, exactly that, right? So you focus on that middle bit, and also the other part of it is what matters. There's a bunch of stuff in your control that doesn't matter, right? How many of us worry about, I don't know, whether I've got the right pair of shoes on today or something? There's a bunch of things that, you might put worry into. Like, I was coming here, so I was like, what should I wear? And I got to dinner, and it's like, there's a curry and there's tomato sauce, and I'm in a white T-shirt. I don't know what to do now, because I don't want to go on stage covered in sauce going, hey, everyone, you can trust me, but I can't even eat properly. So have a think about what really matters in the world or matters to you, and then what can you control? And I added a little bit of influence. You might tell it's very well camouflaged and the same as the rest of the picture, but what you can influence as well, because they're the things that you need to actually think about. What should I focus my time and energy and worry on? So what can we control? There's loads of things we can control, right? Within your team organisation, check in on our people. That's something we don't do often enough. How often do you actually have a meaningful conversation with other people in your team, not about the work they're doing? Like, one-to-ones are supposed to be for this, but they're not. They're always like, what have you done this week? What do you need help with? Not, how are you? Consciously actually check in, but care. Don't just be, how's it going? Yeah, good. That's crap, right? I think there's two, I was going to say it there on my set now because it's in my head. There's two little adverts or things that have been created. One was a UK football one, and I saw a one from, I think, New Zealand, Australia, where two people are running. And it's two guys chatting. And you see them week after week doing the same thing. The two guys go for their run every day, see the same people. And the two football guys, you might have seen that one, it's a couple of years old now, and they're just chatting. And one of them's a bit more upbeat and a bit more, yeah, it's all good. And then suddenly he's not there anymore, because he wasn't fine. And that's really important, because people can appear fine and not be. So take that moment to actually care and check in, and not just say, how's it going, mate? Yeah, all good, brilliant. No, how is it going? Talk to me about your life. And take that time with your family, your friends, people in your team, because it could make a huge difference. There could be that one person that is struggling and takes a moment to come out, and then they talk to you. And that could literally save a life, or certainly help their career. Team culture, touched on that before. How can you kind of build a really open team culture where people do the checking, where people know? So I try to do things to lead by example. So my calendar's got public bookings in it with pick up my daughter from school and that kind of stuff. So even though I'm the leader of the team and I can just say I'm just doing stuff, I make it known to my team I have childcare responsibilities. I make it, sometimes even if I don't tend to get that stressed, if we've had a bit of a heated debate about something, I might be like, oh, that's quite stressful. I could do with a break and a cuppa. So other people then know that they can do that. So you can almost kind of force some of these things in there just to demonstrate a bit of humility and weakness on your part, or that it's okay to talk, so that other people in the team know they can as well. Talk your business. So do they know how stressed we are? I've got no idea what's going on in finance, apart from when they need me to do my budget and my spreadsheets, whatever else. So I don't know if they're stressed about something. So why would they know about us? So how does your exec know, other than maybe a BBC headline or whatever, that burnout is huge in cyber, that people are stressed, that my team's worried, without us talking to them? So if you haven't gone and spoken to your exec and talked about how stressful it is and your team's overworked or whatever else, how are they going to know? Don't assume they know just because we know. Set expectations. So be clear about what's required and what's needed. Don't just let people think they should be working 24/7. Make it clear you expect people to stop work even if the task isn't finished and have some other time. I sometimes see people who I might go over a minute or two, sorry. I'm in the way of your coffee, but I'll be quick. You see people who are someone in the team was off sick the other day, and then they were someone else was saying, oh, hey, this person just contacted me. I'm like, tell them to stop working. They're off sick. I literally said that to them. The first thing you do is tell them to stop and talk to us when they're better. Promote that downtime that I've been touched about. Lead by example. Take those breaks. Let people know when you need a break. And be open and talk about this stuff. What can we control? This is much more specific about you. So a lot of stuff that we do, I like to think of myself, we've got a bucket. You have a bucket of crap you can deal with, right? And that's not a work bucket and a home bucket. It's just a bucket. So if you've got stress at home, stress at work, that all gradually reduces what's in your bucket. But you can refill the bucket, and you can make the bucket bigger. So if you look after yourself, how many of us actually go to bed at a sensible time every day? Obviously, if you've got young kids, don't even pretend you're getting enough sleep. My son's always up early. Do some exercise. I love the gym. I'm lucky. But if you don't love it, just get out and walk. Get out and do a little bit of stuff to look after yourself. Eat reasonably well. You don't have to be meticulous about it, but just look after yourself if you're healthy. The healthier you are in your body, the healthier your mind will be, the more you can deal with, the more you can take stress on and not kind of collapse. Have some hobbies. This one's so important. Things that take your mind off. I know I'm one of those people, I always think. My mind doesn't ever stop. So I have to find ways to do that. One of my ways is riding motorbikes. I go out with some friends, we like to push on, obviously within the speed limit. But when you're doing it, you have to be 100% focused. It's probably the only few hours a week that I am laser focused on something that's not thinking about other stuff. Because if I don't, I'll probably end up like crashing, right? So you find something where you can take your mind off work, where you can be completely that 2 hours or 3 hours when I'm out on the bike with my friends, or even just on my own, I come back and it's like a reset because I've had some time with nothing else on my mind but focusing on the road, enjoying the ride, getting that corner just perfect, whatever else, right? So find a hobby. It could be tiddlywinks, it could be stand collecting, it could be chess, it could be running, whatever it is, but where you absorb your mind, not just your body, on something else. Talk to people. I've touched on that already, but talk if you've got a problem. Please try and talk if you've got any issues. Your reactions. It's really easy, I said, in this world of like the internet and problems, but like, that's terrible, I'm really angry about that. Why? Does it matter if someone put a stupid comment on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever? No, it doesn't. So try and control your reactions a little bit to things and work out what's actually important and what things I can just go, I don't really care, it doesn't matter. Be brutally honest with yourself. So you have to be honest with yourself to do this. Nearly there, sorry. I'm just going to keep walking this way. But if you're not honest with yourself, like I wasn't, I was like, everything's fine, I'm doing great, it's all good. And it was a disaster. So actually audit yourself and be honest with how you're feeling and what you're struggling with. Family and friends, talk to them, value them, take their time, but also be there for them, because it's really important to be there for other people as well. Just 2 more slides. What can we influence? I'll go quickly through this one, but this is kind of more work-related, but there's a bunch of stuff you can not necessarily change, but influence at work. So you can go and talk about budget and tooling and where you've got pain points and get your business to accept. One of the things I love doing is if they don't want to give you the budget or tooling or support to do something, raise a risk on it. And then someone's got to put virtual ink on paper to say, I accept not fixing that problem. And that often brings to light that they actually don't want to accept that, so they'll give you the support to fix it. Or you've covered your own arse and your team's arse a little bit because it's now a document that says someone else who owns risk and they've accepted it. So it's not you in the firing line if something comes from it. Team culture, touched on that already, but you can't own it or change it, but you can help drive that open, supportive team culture. And then organisational awareness of the issue and organisational culture. So that talking thing. Talk to people in your organisation about the stress the team's under. Talk to your organisation about burnout and about how it affects your teams and why you need support. You often find there's a lot of things like employee EAP programs, that kind of stuff that HR will have that can help your teams. So understand what your organisation can do to help your team as well. This one's here just for a bit of fun. Remember, even when it's a serious topic, so we share a summary of kind of threat intel. I don't know what this format is done, but threat intel that's important to our business. And that's a really important and like bland topic, effectively. It's here's some threats, here's why they're important, here's what we're doing about them. But my team has created a bit of a fun slide as well. So let your team have some fun and personality when they're doing it. Don't just kind of expect it all to be bland and corporate. This is one for CEOs, promise. This is one, and then just the end slide, then we're done. So, but this is a great one for you to take to your office. I never said I was honest. So, this is one to take back to your business. If your organisation wants to be resilient, if your organisation wants to be trusted, if your organisation wants to succeed, if your organisation doesn't want to get breached, having a security team and having a secure culture and a safe culture is critical. So let your CEOs and HR leaders know that if they don't give you the support and if your team is burnt out and not performing, guess what? The business is going to suffer. It's a bottom line issue, it's a resilience issue, it's a trust issue, and it's a regulatory issue as well for many organisations. Finally, this is genuinely the last one, we're done. So, kind of just to recap, take action now. Don't go, oh, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it next day. Think about, for yourself first. It's the airline part, it's the airline air thing when the oxygen mask come down, right? Don't try and save your team if you're struggling because you will then fail. Think about yourself, save yourself first, then you can help other people. But audit yourself, be honest. If you use an impartial friend or someone that's close to you but not super involved in your life that you can talk to about anything you're struggling with or get an honest opinion on where you are. Work on letting go. You know, I do this as well. I'll read something and I'm like, that's fucking, and I'll be, why? Why does it matter? Let things go that don't matter. Have things that can take your mind off work completely, and that's important. If you're doing something else but still thinking about work, you're not getting any downtime. So let yourself really turn off and switch off from work. Check in on your team and your teammates and your friends. But care. Don't go, oh, let's have one-to-one. How are you doing? Oh, that's good. Now we need to get on to work stuff. No, take the time to actually sit down with them and talk to them about how they're doing. Team culture, be open, lead by example, as I said. If you start being open and you start being honest about how things are and the things that are stressing you out, it just sets the example that other people can as well. Because people often will follow, but they won't necessarily lead. And take your leadership of your organisation on your journey. Take them through why we're struggling and why it's important and why they should be helping us. And be accountable, because I am watching. Cool, thank you very much, and sorry.